Hello again. We're going to continue. I'm John, by the way. We're going to continue with the Xingyi. We're going to start with what would be considered sort of the first fist in the five elements of Xingyi, which is the sort of foundational basis for the entire thing. All the linking fists, even the animal fists, five elements are sort of the basis for it. The first one, Pichuan, means splitting fist. There might be some places that translate it as chopping fist. I know what a splitting fist. It is the element, represents the element of metal in the traditional Chinese system. It's metal, water, wood, fire, earth. Are the five elements for that. So Pichuan represents metal, and the main organ that metal helps to work on and work with is the lungs. So Pichuan, splitting fist, metal, lungs. Pichuan, splitting fist, metal, lungs. There is a test, and some of my other students can attest to the fact that I'm like, what's this one? What's this one? And which comes next? And I do that a lot. So it is fairly important, as I talked about, I believe I talked about before. Sun Lutong was saying that, you know, if these fists are played without the correct intent, the yi and xingyi, the correct intent, if they're played too without enough smoothness and without enough of the proper internal principles, they're going to double down and harm the things that you're trying to help, because this is an internal martial art, so there is qigong aspect to it too that needs to be that one needs to be mindful of as they're playing it, especially since Xingyi will kind of amp up that yang sort of energy, so you need to make sure that you're still mild in how you play it with it. So we don't want grip muscle fist. No, still relaxed and come out. Now, one of the things with Pichuan is it really starts showing where the original sort of spear fighting mentality and form, literal form of it, the Xing, the actual shape of the body, really comes in. I got the little mop handle over there that I'll work on after I go through it. But so Pichuan, splitting fist, metal, lungs. Remember again, uh, spear sort of thing with it. So that has that idea. A couple things, there are still going to be sort of yin and yang aspects for it. So if something's going out, something's got to come back. Something's coming down, something's coming up. So there is that yin and yang exchange. Again, it's still an internal martial art, so you still have that yin and yang exchange. And in other videos, I've also talked about the three sort of planes that the body is sort of divided in or can move in. You have the coronal plane, which is I also call orbital sometimes, but the coronal. So it's like if you draw, you know, if you look at my head and draw a circle around me that way, if it was a cut me in half, cut me in half flat this way, that would be the coronal uh, plane, the circular plane. There's the horizontal, so you know you have these movements like from Yang style or even in Chen style. They come around in a flat, like you know, the wax on, wax off along the table. That would be the horizontal, and then we have the vertical axis of the circling. Uh, Splitting is going to work kind of mainly along that vertical axis. I'm working like this, up and out. Couple things. For the stepping, we're going to use the stepping that we talked about previously with the Santi. We had the two Santi videos, the one where I was talking about sort of the theory and read out of those two books, and the one where we're actually practicing how to get into Santi, how to stand in it, and then how to take a step and go through. So it's going to be that toe out, lean forward, step through. Well, we'll demonstrate this too. I'll adjust a little bit and show you. Um, so we kind of already did that stepping method. And then the hands are going to be vertical. One of the things, I'm going to just talk about it real fast now, is we're going to have, oh, that's too much. I'm sorry. That's too much. Kind of in between there. There we go. One of the things you're going to see here is there's a pull down. Now, a lot of times what I see with some people is they'll do this. I call it the Popeye fist, you know, the Popeye or speed bag sort of thing. No, we don't want that with this. With puppy, with Peachwine, with splitting fist, we want. The way I talk about it is, I've had mostly guys in my class. I call it just pull the face mask. So, like in American football, they have the helmets with the face mask. Pull the face mask. I'm not doing this because one of the things that will do, you can almost feel the activation. Is it median, deltoid? Is it anterior, posterior, median or medial? Forget which. Deltoid bit in the middle here. You can almost feel that as the elbow lifts, activating here. And if this starts activating and tensing out, then that actually separates the arm out from the whole rest of the body. So there are ways, you know, Chen style has, you know, ways to actually use the elbow with the whole body coming up and going through. This, however, we want to grab, because again, going back to the sort of mythology of Jilong Feng finding, you know, the scrolls of Yu Fei sort of thing. According to that mythology, Yu Fei was teaching the Xingyi to the officers, but Eagle Claw to everybody else. So you want that grasping, pulling, grasping, pulling aspect to it. So pull straight down. And then what we have is, so if I'm here and I pull, I make fist, pull. So this pulls straight in to the dantian. So it's like my belt, my navel's here, belt line, dantian, inside. So I'm out with Santi, make fist, pull. Now what happens is I point the elbow down, which takes the fist up the center line. So instead of Popeye fist and speed bagging it, I pull down and lift up. As I lift up, I point the elbow. As I toe out, and then that's why I thrust. So that's where that kind of spear comes in. But I pull down, point the elbow down. The elbow points down, the fist comes up. Down, pull the fist up the center line. So this has, if any of you have, I'd imagine it'd be in judo or jiu-jitsu or something like that, but I know it's in Swaijiao. The idea, you know, you have like shake, 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 pull down and up. That idea, if you pull down, the person wants to come up, so you help them come up. That helps uproot them, and then you can do whatever you're going to do for the takedown or the throw or anything like that. And the uprooting actually helps get that, you know, the bum overhead sort of 3-point throw with that. So if you pull someone, you got the face mask, you got the jacket, you got the shirt, you got everything in their arm, pull down, their initial thing is going to be to fight it and come up. So you pull down and let them come up. You control that with your whole body and push up, and they do that too. Sifu Irvin, my Swaijiao instructor, will say any good martial art's going to have Tida Shuaina. So you have kicking and punching, throwing, grappling sort of thing, and then the china, which is, you know, the seizing, locking, grabbing, any, you know, the wrist grabs and stuff like that. So that's going to have that too. Yeah, I get the fist out of the way and I come in and punch. You can do that, sure. You can come in, grab the fist out of the way, kick, punch. You know, you can now grab and work their joints and what they do with that too. So you can grab, twist, up as well. But you can grab and then still use that lift to then uproot them. So as you come forward, they might even stumble, allowing you to come through, depending on what you do. Keep punching, keep kicking. They come up, stand up, grab them, take them down, however you're going to work it. So pull, point the elbow, lift up the center line from the chin, thrust. So it's not going to be necessarily a back fist. It's going to be, you're still going to use the center point and thrust. In, up, thrust. And watch, notice how I'm here, my weight's still back, I bring up, I'm going to toe out, and from my back heel, thrust. Thrust. And as I do that, this hand here, which isn't a fist, pulls from the elbow back to the hip. I'll talk about that in a minute. So that's the basic idea. So more whole body. We're already out in Santi. So I pull, lift, toe out from the back heel, thrust. This comes to the hip. Hand, foot, elbow, knee, shoulders, hips. So as my foot comes up, my hand comes up. And as my foot crosses the center plane with the other foot, my hand comes in and rubs up. Same thing as Santi that we did before. You rub the inside and chop out together. Pull, lift, thrust, step up, and through. Pull, lift, thrust, step up, and through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what we don't want to make it all Mr. Roboto with it or anything. What we want is nice. So it might even have a certain amount of sort of fudging in with it, but it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. So it still has that internal principle of you keep moving with it. There's not a stop and a stop and a stop and a stop. It doesn't work like that with internals. So, I see that sometimes if I'm judging tournaments, you get people who, when they get the scores, they don't think they would get anywhere else or something else. It's like you stopped, you posed. You're in internals, you don't pose with that. It's got to keep moving. So that even if you'll see it in Chen style, you'll see it with some people with Xingyi as well, even if they have that pop, it's the pops, but it keeps moving with it as well. So you want that with the Xingyi. Beginners, I would not recommend trying a lot of fudging with this until you really get the whole body unified together. And if you try and send out, it's not getting stopped up in your elbow or your shoulder and your wrist or bouncing back in towards like the heart or the lungs or something like that, which that force can do if you're having difficulty translating force into power. So play it like Sun Lutong would said, mildly. You can play this like Tai Chi, nice and slow. You can play all. You can play it like that. It's completely fine. You want to also make sure you remember the breathing. So I'm here, I inhale. So as I'm gathering in, I'm inhaling. As I'm expanding out, I exhale. I'm gathering in and inhale and exhale. Or you can even in and out if you want to kind of expand the time and go slow and coordinate everything together. So let me show you the stick bit real. Let me show you the stick bit again. Or not again, because I haven't done it yet. All right, hold on. All right, hey, how you doing? I'm going to show you the stick bit that I haven't shown you before, so not again. And I don't have the room to actually use the whole spear, so that's just going to represent, imagine just a whole big spear. With imagination. And I'll show you kind of where that spear fighting aspect is, and kind of the important parts with the fist. So, if this is my spear point, here's my Santi already right there. I can't keep that finger the fingers kind of along the shaft of the spear here. So already this is still Santi. Still Santi already right here, just the way you would hold a spear normally. So as I toe out, remember, toeing out is 45 degrees. My knee, you can't really see it, my knee is right out over the toe. I'm not going beyond the toe, but it's just over the toe. and I'm sinking down through the heel. So as I toe out, twisting, thrust. It's a little bit harder, it'd be back here and out here. A thrust. Take the hands, you rotate on the palms. As you step through, chop. So there's that kind of chopping idea of Pichuan. Thrust, slide, chop. Thrust, slide, chop. So a real quick little illustration of kind of where that sort of origin and some of that could be, especially with the spear. So we have to talk about turning around as well, which is an important sort of aspect, because there's these five. Sorry, the five elements have particular ways that they turn. Pichuan and Bongchuan, which in some things, I'll go into more kind of my weird things later. You might, some places you'll see Bongchuan a second. I usually go Zhuanchuan a second because Zhuanchuan is water, Bongchuan is wood. And in the creative cycle of the five elements, it's metal, water, wood, fire, earth. So I like to show the Zhuanchuan aspect of it to build that creative cycle internally. A lot of times you'll see Pichuan, Bongchuan, metal to wood, even though which is still almost a destructive cycle, but the rest of it goes creative. It's a little weird. I don't know why they're flipped. I don't understand why. So those two, Pichuan and Bongchuan, turn to the right. The other three turn to the left. This is significant. It's mentioned that way. Yeah, you can train both ways. I do also train both ways. Even if things are primarily a left side or primarily a right side, I like at least getting a little bit of the other side in there, because if heaven forbid you've got to use it, you never know which one you're going to have to use. Also, I'm a little symmetrically kind of obsessed, so if something's a little off with that, I just get all flippy. So, but the general rule is Pichuan, Bongchuan turn to the right. The other three, the Zhuanchuan, Paochuan, and the Hongchuan, turn to the left. Now the turn, I'm going to show you the sort of the basic turn, and there's a couple of ways I'll tweak to show you kind of the way Master Hu originally taught it as well. And I got a video back in there somewhere that talks about Kobu and Pibu. Kobu, Pibu, Kobu, Pibu. Kobu is a buckle step. Pibu is almost like going out the other way. So Kobu, you want your feet, the toes to point in, creating a 90-degree angle with your heels shooting out the outside. So if look at it from the top, it's going to look, your feet should look like this. All right, so you have each at 45 but pointing in. Pibu is you want going out that way too. So it's going to go 45 the other way. Instead of in, it's going to open out. And it's really going to have to be in with the hips. The hips really are necessary to make that work. So technically, when we step out here, we're stepping out in Pibu, because we're stepping out 45. I'm sorry, I had a little too much toe with that. We actually want to slide it a little bit more, like that. So technically that's a Pibu. If I'm here, 45, 45 in. This would be Kobu. So my knees are in, my toes are facing in 45, my back is still straight, my butt and tailbone's still tucked in, so my shoulders and my hips are aligned. So I'm not bending out, I'm not leaning back, I'm not doing any of the weird sort of stuff like that. But I could start doing the time warp again, but I won't. I'll spare you that. But this would be Kobu. So I'm here and I close it. Santi, the Santi legs, the left leg is empty and close. I'm actually turning my hip, not just turning here at like my ankle or even at my knee. I'm actually turning my hip in, and then I can sink. So this looks similar. I'm not a Wing Chun guy, but it actually has kind of, they'll maybe be here with it. One of the things that can do is, whoop, I'm sorry, folks. So I have this here. If this is a leg, trap that leg. People go the other way. So if you got that, if this is a foot, and like, the ankle's here, something like that, you trip this, put some weight on it, you're locking out that leg, and you can push. Same thing this way, and push. So the shin is kind of riding up their shin, and you're using your whole leg to seize and lock theirs with it. So you have an open and close. In with the hip. Hips, even with kicks, hips are really where it kind of is. So with the hands, we come out in the Santi. We make fists. Again, hands and feet, elbows, knees, shoulders, hips together. So as I close, my hands come in too. So I'm out and in. Out and in. Out and in. Switch. So it's still just like the rest of the stepping in Xingyi and Taiji and Bagua. The weight gets distributed from one to the other. You push from the heel. You don't just sort of just go dump, and up, you push. The weight is distributed and moved with intent. And we want to try and keep the head level as we go. So it's not just, because you're actually uprooting yourself at that point in time. You're taking yourself off of the thing. You're losing power, and you're cutting off then again some of that extra qigong aspect of it, as well as some of the physiological health with it. Because if this is my foot, these are kind of my toes, and there's the middle of the foot, and this is my heel. Right in front of the heel, right in the middle, and right in front of the sort of pad where the toes are, the bubbling wells. There's 3 major acupressure points. And as your foot does all of this stuff, as it's moving through the day and balancing and everything, you're hitting those 3 points. And those 3 points are interconnected with everything. So the people who like getting foot massages, and that's one of the things that can work on that. You're hitting those points. And all these nerve endings from all over the place, and everything is gathered in there, these little bunches of nerves. And as even if you stand on one leg and you're doing one of these and all that other stuff, if you keep level and you're not coming too much on the arch and the instep, or the whichever side is which on that, if you're going straight, you're hitting those and you're massaging those and you're activating those. So that's all up the nervous system. So that's part of the then massage, health, qigong aspect of that too. So we want close, push. Same thing with the fist. Elbow points down, fist comes up the center to the chin. People thrust, and then you step through with the Santi, or the chop, whichever way you want to think about it. So to play it like a little mini form here, we start, we come up, 3 to 1, 2 to 2, 1 to 3, in, out, pull, lift, thrust, step through and chop, pull, lift, step, thrust, step through and chop, kobo, shift, I'm kind of in a pickle here, but I can do the same motions in one place. Kobu, shift, thrust, chop. So that chop has the same thing we talked about with the Santi. That's sort of like you're a phone book. This is coming forward and out. This one's coming back and down. So that's generally Pichuan. Now there's a couple little variations. One, you can even still keep, like Sun Lutang was saying, this is good for fighting, and make this small. So instead of coming up and out, internally very similar, but smaller. Still has the turn, still has the thrust. You still have the coming back. And then you can shoot in with it as well. Master Hu used to play this part bigger. So it would be more in here, not quite resting on it, still resting on the outside, but more of like a thrust with the elbow. And his turning had wrapping with it. So this actually would wrap over the head, almost like an overhead knock strike. So it comes out hit. Same thing that way, though. So it's still going to end up with that. His had that extra wrapping to it, too, which, again, yeah, overhead strike. Or you come in, you got someone, you wrap them up, like under the arm, for instance, push the back of their head as you come in and throw. So a couple little tweaky, variation-y kind of thing there with that. So that's Pichuan, basically. If I had to pick one, I kind of do this a lot because not a lot, because I can't do it a lot because I'm boiling it down to certain things. I talked about before, if there was only one thing ever I was allowed to do again, it would be, this standing meditation, because it has, I mean, this is it's an internal martial art. It has everything. It's got your meditation, it's got your qigong. There's fighting applications for it, self-defense applications for it. But splitting fist is one of the things that I think that if you become proficient at, the rest of Xingyi you can understand. The same thing, Santi is like that too. If I had to do it was like, this is you only know one thing in Xingyi, and I mean I would still pick Pichuan because I would still train the Santi in with that too. But like, no, I'm playing Pichuan. Look, I'm just holding this thing, and I'm going to hold this because you can hold this for a time as a standing posture too. So it has all that Santi training in it, and I think to me, if you get proficient with grasp the bird's tail of Yang style Taiji, you can understand and have a good proficiency about Taiji. I think Pichuan has a similar depth of purpose for the whole art in it as well. It's got some of that spear fighting. It's got the Santi is probably more, shows up more than the other four of the 5-element fists. So you have that Santi element to it. You still have the fist element. You've got yin yang in there. You've got tearing. Again, you still have all the Tida Shuan. You're going to have the Tida Shuan on all of them, but there are ways to kind of access it. For Bagua, I think it would be probably first palm change. I'm thinking Chen style. Oh, Chen or Sun style is the two that I'll practice. But those three things, one, if you had to boil down one from each of the arts to try and really just streamline and really get basic stuff in with that, I think Pichuan would be it, besides just Santi itself, for Xingyi. So that's it for that. I'll have to go over some the stepping aspects for the next few before we get into the rest of the 5-element fists, because there's some particular stepping methods that need to be reviewed and gone over first, and for the whole body to be able to shoot through space in a particular manner, to get the whole body and the whole power behind it. So I'm John. Sifu John Cosma. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, ring bell, share, comment, maybe. I don't know. You don't have to do that one. But yeah, so thank you very much. Hope this helps. Remember, again, especially if you're a beginner with this, play it mildly. Work on getting the whole body coordinated. Work on getting the whole body coordinated and the breathing together with the motions. Don't worry about making it look explosive right now. Don't worry about making it look like you can jump in the next Donnie Yen movie and start looking like, anything like that. Don't worry about any of that. Worry about getting the mechanics as correct as you can and as streamlined as you can. Not really any wasted motion. You want to keep moving forward. You want to make sure that your alignments, that's why I was talking about 45 degrees and 90 degrees and getting the hips involved and all that other stuff, because those alignments are necessary for it to be an internal martial art, to be played correctly. It is necessary for you to take care of yourself too, because otherwise stuff starts to hurt. And when stuff starts to hurt, you don't feel good. Maybe you don't practice or something like that. Most people aren't like me and will, take a break from practicing if things hurt. I don't, for better or worse or whatever. But either way, focus on the basics. Focus on making it as correct and as perfect as you can make it. Don't worry about going crazy and being able to fight 100 dudes and blow their spines out of their back or any of that other stuff. Sun Lutong might be apocryphal. It was a story that he was a mother had a mentally handicapped son and took him to Sun Lutong. He was like, I don't know, do something with him. And all he trained him in was Pichuan. That's it. And after like a year or two, he put the kid in a tournament and the kid was winning. That's all he did. He played Pichuan all the time and he made it correct. And he was able to then kind of explode it and make it useful and strip down and just what it needed to be without having to have all this other flourish and superfluous garbage with it. Pichuan is a beautifully beautifully succinct, a beautifully streamlined yet complex fist in and of itself. I mean, each of the fists and each of the animals' shapes, the element fist shapes and the animal shapes are all like mini forms. You kind of play back to back to back to back to back. You string them. I said stream them. That's not right. String them. So you can. I mean, just today, I did some bagua rotations. I did some silk reeling stuff, and then I played most of my bulk training for today was actually just this. I just played splitting fist for I don't know like 10 laps in the was it gymnasium with the kids when I was at work. I had a couple of them in there. I was keeping an eye on them and just playing splitting. And I didn't play it with any fodging because I'm around students and stuff like that, so I'm not trying to play it to look martial, but I was getting like the Dantian rotations, working on that vertical circle, making sure my alignments are correct, making sure I could feel it, my Dantian, and working on the Qigong aspects of it. Maybe if I'm here, I'll work on some other martial stuff or anything too, but you can work on all these things and still have it be good for all the rest of the stuff too. So a lot of Pichuan practice. Never stop practicing Pichuan. If you learn all the 17 shapes and a bunch of other forms and weapons and all this other stuff, that's all great. Man, keep coming back to the basics. Keep coming back to the 5 elements, the wuxing, and keep coming back and really doing Pichuan more. Like personally for me, like in here, if I'm doing like laps for Xingyi in here, I'll do like 10 laps of Pichuan, and if regardless, and 5 to 10 of the other ones, and then whatever else I'm playing that day, or I'll just keep looping that 10 laps of Pichuan, 5 laps of the other ones, another 10 laps of Pichuan, 5 laps of the other ones, and maybe a few more laps of Pichuan, depending upon my time and whatever else I can do. But I mean, I know I go heavy with Pichuan in terms of my Xingyi training, and I've heard other people do as well. So, but be careful with it, but have fun with it, and play it to help. And again, be careful of, watch your kind of emotions with it sometimes, because a lot of Xingyi will start kind of amping some stuff up. So it's the E part, the intent part, the mind part of it is still your responsibility. You can play Xingyi every day. That doesn't mean it's not your responsibility if you're a D-bag to people. So at 5 minutes later, after I initially said that's it, and thank you kindly.